So my name is Veronica Bolton and I teach music at Glenunga International High School in South Australia. And I'm going to show you a really simple, fun way for songwriting. And it's a course that I use with my Year 9 music students. I use it with both the specialist class and I use it with the experienced class. And the experienced class are generally the students who don't have as much of a musical background. And the really great thing about the way that this can happen is that the students who have no musical background or theoretical background can achieve success. But also the students who are far more experienced are able to extend this as far as they would like to. They can do a whole lot with it. So the the main program that I actually use is this one here that's on the screen now, and it's called Hook Theory. And I'm just going to give you a really quick sort of overview of what you can do with this. So first of all, I actually am a teacher. So to get all of the benefits out of the program, to be a teacher is the good thing. And you'll see if I click on here that some of the things that you can actually do as a teacher down here, you can actually set work for them to do and grade it within this program. So it's really, really useful for that. So the part of it that I'm going to show you right now is called Hook Pad. And this is the area where we actually do exercises and some songwriting. So what you get here is a grid down the bottom, and you get all of these things up here which maybe do or maybe don't make sense, but it's pretty straightforward. So down here is where I put my chords. So I'm going to just show you some basic chords. There we go, C major, F major, and our G major chord, and back to our tonic. So there we go, there's a really simple four bar chord progression. Just shorten that up for you. So what that sounds like is this. So a pretty familiar sound. You've all heard that before. Now, the really cool thing about this is that you can then go ahead to add notes. So the notes is this part up here. And if you look at it, it makes sense that this is 4 beats in a bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's your beats, and you'll see that these notes here, these are the notes and this is the duration. So if you have a look at K, you'll see that K actually represents a crotchet. So there we go, there's one crotchet in a bar. So you simply just use the duration of the notes. For example, I'll stick a couple of quavers in here. And you can just keep adding notes in to create a melody. Now, you can also change things like the time signature. So it doesn't have to be in 4/4. If you have a look here, you can change the time signature to be in any other time signature. And then with the key, you don't have to be in C major. You can just automatically change your key like so. So we stay in C for a moment. We can change our tempo simply by this. But the really cool thing that is fantastic for helping students is that if you hover over the chord like this, you can see that the chordal notes are highlighted. So when you're teaching the students about using the chord for the melody, and when you're teaching them about how to use chordal notes on the strong beats so that it's, stable, melodically stable, this is really useful. It's particularly useful for those students who really don't even understand music at all or chords, because you just need to show them this and help them to understand that they're the chordal notes and they're the ones that are going to sound good, particularly on the strong beats. And then, of course, you can click on this thing here called stable, and it will highlight them permanently for you so that you can see them the whole time that you're writing. There's lots of things. So we've got the notes here, the different durations of the notes. You can actually pull up a keyboard down the bottom here. And so the students, when they're writing their melody, could actually be using the keyboard to do that. Or, if they're a guitarist, they could actually play around with the guitar instead. So that's a really cool tool to use as well. And we've talked about the fact that you can change the time and the tempo. The mixer is really good. If you go into the mixer and you really, if the kids want to do a little bit more with it in this particular program, they can change the sounds here, but they can also do things like add a drum beat if they would like to, just to get a bit of a sound of an idea of what it's going to sound like with a drum beat. As well as the mixer, if students really want to do a whole lot of songwriting right in this program, you go with the show lyrics and they can actually start to write their lyrics in over the notes as well. Then the other thing is that if they're really excited about the idea of some harmonies, we can add a little bit of harmony in here. Like, you know, it should sound pretty awful. So then if we play, you'll hear them, which sounds really dreadful. And then, whilst we're still in this program, the great thing is that you can go over here to export. Now, export's really interesting because you've got a few different options here. If students have gone to the effort of writing their tune, they quite like it, their little tune, and they've mixed it up a bit and added some new sounds, well, they could automatically just export it as a wave. If a student wants to just have a bit of a look at it, or if you as a teacher just want to have a look at it and say, you know what, let's have a look at this in terms of the notation, you just click on score and up pops your score. Whoops, looks like we've got tab. Shall we try that again? Score. And there we go. So you can see the chords. You can even see that the chords are in the inversion that you could see in HookPad. And there's my little melody with my little harmony as well. So it's all there for them to look at. And, you know, if they wanted to write the entire song and print this off, there's some sheet music ready to go. So as you saw, there's tab, there's the score, there's a lead sheet, which is just the melody with the chord symbols. But the one thing that's very, very cool to do is actually the export. We export it as a MIDI because this gives us the opportunity, and I usually just stick that up in my desktop, gives us the opportunity to actually open it up in other programs. And that's the next thing that I'm going to talk to you about. Okay, so I'm still here in HookPad, but I want to show you something else that is a next step that I do with students, and that is having a look in the tabs. Now, the tabs are really cool because what that actually is it's showing you a whole stack of songs that other people have put into Hook Theory. And there's always a tab of the day like this, and there you'll see there's the song. So if I play this for you, you'll see that there's ticked YouTube and there's ticked piano. So we'll have a listen to it with YouTube. So that's the YouTube version, and then you can just click on the piano version. Come on back here, you. And have a listen to it in a really raw form. So the really cool thing about this is that there's just loads and loads and loads of songs that have been added in here. So for example, if we have a look at, we all know Happy. If we have a look at Happy, we'll get to see what it looks like in a chord structure. And of course we could again click on the piano and have a look at it in the piano form. And so the other thing is the search tab up here. So if you happen to really like, for example, the Rolling Stones, you can have a look and see what you can find in the Rolling Stones. And loads of things here. Let's have a look at Satisfaction. So what you can be doing with this, though, in particular with your students, is you're showing them the chords. And in many, many instances, as we know, rock and pop songs have really simple chord progressions. We can show them everything that's important about a rock pop song, what makes them successful, things like the repetition and the simplicity and the catchy chorus, and the fact that, you know, very often the melody's pretty simple, but it's repetitive, and so there's just loads of things. You can actually use this as a bit of an analysis tool. And like I said before, the students don't necessarily need to know a whole lot about music to be able to get an idea of what this is all about. So there we go. So if you really like a song, which is what I do, I usually add it to my collections down here, add to my collection. So that's something that the students can do. They can go through and they can be looking at songs that they like, and in particular collecting tunes that, you know, that appeal to them, particularly in the idea of, you know, the genre that they like, or just even chord progressions that they really like, because this is the first step towards writing their own song. A really good thing to do when you write your own song is to base it on songs that you actually like yourself. So that's a really good start. So in my collections, I've collected a few songs, and I'm going to play around with, in particular, this one here called Let Love Lead the Way by the Spice Girls. I think I've just chosen this one because I sort of quite liked this chord progression. So So that's the YouTube version, and of course there's the piano version. So what you do with this, which is a very, very cool tool, is you go copy this theory tab into HookPad. So if I copy, there we go. I have it pulled up in that HookPad, the same place that we were looking at a moment ago when we were looking at the C major chords. And here we have it. We have the same song. It's all been put in here for me, all copied, so I can change the name of it so that it becomes my little composition. So I'm going to say that I really like this chord progression. So that's going to be me saying I would really like to use this as the basis for a song. Now I don't really need to be playing this and composing with this with the YouTube clip on, so I'm going to get rid of that just in here. I don't want the YouTube video. So the YouTube video is gone now. So here we are. It's really basic chords, basic melody. But of course, as we know, I can't, this is, you know, breaching copyright, isn't it, if I just use this and say this is my song. So quite simply, we just go up in here and we wipe out, totally wipe out that melody. And there we go. What I have been left with now is a chord progression. Now this chord progression, of course, is not copyright, it's just a chord progression. So I can use that chord progression and write my own melody. And you know, there's lots of different options within that as well, because I could change the key if I want to, like we mentioned before. I could change the tempo if I want to. I could even change the time signature if I really want to. And again, I've got this capacity to hover over the chords and to see which particular notes are going to work really well within here. Now, I've actually, I've already played around with this so that I could save time. So if I just have a look at my HookPad songs here, I'll show you that I really quickly the other day just stuck a bit of a melody in here. Let Love Lead the Way, my new melody. And here we go. I've changed the tempo actually. I didn't change the key, I changed the tempo, and I stuck in a melody. So what I created was something that's actually quite different in style from the original song, but that's okay because that's often what will happen anyway. It's my song, I can do what I want with it. So I've created my little, let's say this is my my verse here, perhaps. Then I've got some really cool options for how I can edit this. If I go into export and I save it as a MIDI, I can open a MIDI, and I'm sure most of you know this, I can actually open a MIDI in Sibelius. So let's have a look. I've already got this, I believe, on the desktop. And let's have a look in here. I think it's particularly this one here. So if I open this, this is the raw form, open it up in Sibelius, and there we go. This is it in Sibelius. Now it does some strange things with it, like it puts a bass line here in treble clef, and you probably do want to change it around. And if you have some more experienced students, this is particularly where your experienced specialist students can really get stuck into it if they want to, and change it, add it, change the rhythms, do whatever they want to do with it, change the melody if they don't like it. I've had a play around with that, and here we go. I did edit it myself. I edited it and made myself a little lead sheet here. So I changed the melody a bit. I've added a string section. I did change the bass line. So, I had a really quick play around with it, wrote some lyrics in so that I've got something to sing. And then, of course, as most of us know in Sibelius, you can then export as MIDI again, which is a really cool thing to do, because the next thing that we actually do, which is really good fun, is that we can pull this MIDI up in Soundtrap. So I'm using Soundtrap because it's online, and it's something that the students all can have access to regardless of what computer they've got. But you could also use any other sort of format, or any other, GarageBand is pretty popular, and it all works. It's all the same thing. So if we go into the studio, and I can pull in my MIDI file in here so I can show you what that looks like. I'm going to import a file, and I'm going to grab one of these MIDIs. Let's try that one and open it up. And there we go. Here it is in its really basic form. Sounds pretty weird. The instruments are organs or something strange. So we can go in here and add our things like our drum loops. I don't even know what that is, but I'll stick it in there. There's a drum loop. Oh, don't know what it is. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then we can go in and change our sounds, because we don't want the bass to sound like a Rhodes piano. We want the bass to sound like a bass. So, we find a bass that we like the sound of. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay, we'll go with that. And we probably want the chords. We can see that these are the chords. Probably want the chords to sound like maybe a guitar would be a bit better, I would think. So let's go with, let's stick some, oh no, we'll go with I reckon we'll go with an acoustic, just an acoustic guitar is fine. And the melody, now this is the interesting bit, because we have a melody up here that's being played by an organ or something, but what the students can do here is this is where we can plug in a microphone and actually record singing over the top, so that you end up with the full song, and the whole time that you're going through this, the process has been the whole time there has been no need for any complex studio or any complex equipment. I'm doing all of this on my own laptop, although the students will often plug in one of our decent microphones that we've got at school so that they get a little bit of a better sound when they add the vocals. Of course, they can play around with these loops as much as they want. As you know, you can go in here and you can edit if you want to change parts of it. They can add different things to it. There's so much capacity for changing and mixing up and really enjoying what you can do within this particular program, or in GarageBand, or all of the other programs that are similar to this. So the students have then created their song, and they've added their vocals, and they can save it and download it, and there it is. They've got a song. I'll show you, I did the same thing, but I played around with it a little bit myself. It's pretty awful, but just to give you an idea, a really quick idea of how you can do this. So
This is something that I just really quickly put together for being able to show you what you can do with it, how you can play around with it, and I pretty much did it in about, I think, 20 minutes at the end of my school term. So I've had a lot of success with students just playing around with this. The exciting thing I think about it is that it doesn't matter whether they understand and are advanced musicians or not. They seem to be able to just get some really cool things happening with this sort of method for songwriting. And I've got some great examples, and every year I've been entering these in the ASME Young Composers Awards, and last year it was really exciting because one of the students actually won. Here's a song that was just composed in term 2 this year, and this particular student used exactly this process, and this is what she has come up with. So that's just one example, and I'll give you one more example, just a little bit of a contrast. The Friendship Song. This particular Friendship Song, a student who has very, very limited musical background. So thanks for listening. Of course, in conjunction with all of these tasks that I've shown you that we do using the technology, there's a lot of other conversation that goes along with it. You know, we spend some time talking about how to put together lyrics, and you know, we listen to a lot of other pop and rock songs and spend a bit of time just trying to work out what the features are that make them successful. And we do talk about things like, you know, you would have just heard in that song, for example, that there's a little bit of a drum feel, and we just talk about the little bits and pieces that you need to add in there to make it successful, as well as things like, you know, the structure and how to put a good structure together, and the fact that there's, you know, often a bridge, and the bridge can be vocal or it can be instrumental. And I've had all sorts of things come up with that. For example, a lot of the students really enjoy to put a little rap in there in the bridge, which is kind of cool. Sometimes the students will actually go and find somebody who can play an instrument to add into there, which is the great thing about using these programs, because you can add anything you pretty much like in here. And the great thing about it is that once they've got the bare bones of it from using that HookPad program, they can put the bare bones into a mixing program like this and then actually do so much more with it if they want to. So there's just no limits on what they can achieve, really, and no limits on how they can edit it or what they can do with it. So it's a really cool program, and I've had just a lot of success with it. It's pretty rare that there's a student who doesn't come up with something that sounds okay. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.